Hello people, Mark from Courage Change Works. I hope that you're well. Guys, in this video there's going to be 3 more erroneous thinking styles, and then there's going to be one more video after that, and then we will conclude this particular little section in terms of erroneous thinking, and then we're going to look at other ones that will help with introducing some other styles in the event of trying to resolve problems. So the 10 that I've done in this little subsection is just to bring awareness that there's a lot of different ways of thinking that are erroneous, and that will limit your options in your thinking styles. Let's get into it. Labeling. Labeling is where you give yourself a label, or you give or someone else a label based on their performance, i.e. you write a test and you do poor, you fail for argument's sake, and then you label yourself with you always fail, you stupid so and so, and then that shrinks who you are down to that potentially self-fulfilling prophecy by you stupid so and so in that particular example. So when you start finding yourself labeling yourself and labeling others, it's erroneous, because there's no movement, there's no options for change. The margin of error is limited to hardly anything. So be aware that when you are thinking down those kind of lines and you talk to yourself about in labeling terms, you need to break away from this. How do we combat this? Allow for varying degrees, meaning there's options. Not everybody is like how you say it is. Even yourself, you might not necessarily be accurate in your own appraisal in a given situation. Going back to the example that I gave earlier with the exam, you might not have spent time preparing because your focus was elsewhere. Something else might have happened where it's taken away your time. So you might have dealt with a bereavement for argument's sake, and now this test has come at the same time, or something like that, where your mind, you might have been emotionally not in a good place, or you might be physically out of the area, or whatever. It doesn't really make a difference. The point making here is stop labeling yourself as something inferior to who you truly are. Equally the same, don't over label yourself as being superior, because that's also not quite right. You need to have an honest, congruent appraisal of yourself. So labeling. Making demands. Now this is something that we all do all the time. Overgeneralizing here now a little bit, but consider the following. You must say this. You have to understand the following. She ought to be nicer to him, etc. Those moral operators of necessity, you have to, you must, you should, you shouldn't, you ought to. Those kind of things really limit options. And as a friend of mine said, the words should, have to, all those kind of things have to be removed from our vocabulary. Because once you are in a situation where you are told you have to, you should, you ought to, you shouldn't, basically what it means is you've got no options, you're limited, and it applies a lot of stress in the relationship, because now you've got no choice. It's quite dangerous. So what can we do? So when you find yourself hearing or saying these demand style words, work hard on replacing them with softer words such as, it would be nice if, I'd prefer it to, things like, I would like that to be, I want this, rather than have to. Understand that the world doesn't follow by your rules. If that was the case, we would all be the rulers of our own little country. So remember that we're all different. Retain your standards, but give flexibility in conversation and allow people to express themselves in their way according to their points of view, and so on and so forth. The final one for today is mental filtering. Just like a camera or a sieve, when you're baking, all that kind of stuff, you get all the input and you sieve all the stuff out that you don't want, or your camera that you put on and you get a filter, so the picture color, hue, and that kind of stuff is now changed. What mental filtering does is exactly the same. You get a lot of input, and then all of a sudden you filter out so much, and you're only allowing certain bits of information to come through. I'll give you an example. You believe that you're a failure at work, so you focus on the mistakes and overlook the successes and the achievements achieved previously. So what's happening in that little example there is, so you've failed to meet the deadline. So now all of a sudden that is your primary focus. However, you forget about the promotion that you got last year. You forget about the award that you got a few months back. You forgot about the fact that you were Employer of the Month last month, or whatever the case might be. That now doesn't matter. Now it is just a failure option that you've left yourself with. Be kind to yourself and realize that things need to be put in perspective. So when you find yourself in that mental filtering style of thinking, it's quite dangerous, because you can be hard on yourself and you can be very hard on others, and that's unfair. Here's a couple of tips that we can use to eliminate this kind of thinking, or at least try and improve it for the benefit of everybody. Examine your filters closely. What does your filter allow to come in and out? Maybe your filter needs to be expanded so more quality information can come through, so for you to be more kind and congruent to you, who you normally are. And get more evidence. Just because you say so doesn't make it so. And sometimes we need to understand that our filters are there only to paint a certain picture. But that's unfair to the rest of the colors in the world spectrum that's out there. So there you go. 3 more erroneous thinking styles. If you find this to be helpful, or the channel in its entirety, please subscribe and share and comment, and when you pick the bell, pick all, then you'll get all the videos that we upload in the normal way that it does. But for now, this is Mark from Colors Change Works, and I'll speak to you soon.